try that again. Welcome to Ibiza 2021. Yeah. Hello everyone and welcome to Party Political Puffin. Okay, let's turn down those banging tunes. They are very good. I gotta give a big shout out. Sorry, for some reason my audio has decided not to sync properly. Just a moment. No, that's correct. Let's try something. Jeez. 1 week. 1 week this is gonna work. Oh, that's better. No, it's not. Oh, Gordon Bennett. All right, not to worry. Right, tell you what, put that back to normal. There we go. Right, so let's get these off. So, welcome to Party Political Puffin, and I hope you enjoy the tunes. I think they're excellent, and I've got to give a shout out to the guy that does it. He's a massive streamer called Harris Heller, and those tunes that you're listening to, he produced and put them up on Spotify, and you can have at it. And you don't pay him, you don't get clobbered by the MCA, in other words, licensing, and it's top drawer. So thank you very much, Mr. Heller. It is really is appreciated. Anyway, let's get to the serious stuff. Why am I so out of focus? Let's try. This is what all the good YouTubers do. Of course, I'm not a good YouTuber. Right, that's maybe better. Oh, now I'm seeing the preview. Sorry, the post view. Oh, what? Right. So, welcome. What I'd like to talk about today is to do with Afghanistan. It would be almost impossible to live probably anywhere in the world, but certainly in the Western world, and particularly in the United Kingdom or the United States, and have no idea what I'm talking about when I bring up the country of Afghanistan. Whilst that is a very important story, I feel that I'm not going to do it justice. As much as I've read about it, I think that it is such a massive topic with so much to critique and criticise that, again, that would require a video of its own. And there's something that I particularly would like to talk about that references, or rather that Afghanistan references. And that is the subject of immigration. I'd like to clear some things up to begin. But before we do, let's just have a little look at what I'm talking about, okay? I'm going to show you a video. Okay, I'm sure you've seen the stills of this, but let's just watch what happens. Right. So, like I say, probably everyone is fully versed with those pictures. stills, if not the videos. And as you can see, it's horrible footage of people that are clearly concerned, trying to flee for their lives, trying to pack themselves onto, well, any way of getting out of the country. Problem is, particularly in the UK, we have a Conservative government that doesn't hide. It has no qualms about saying out loud exactly how it feels about immigrants. Now, the whole moral question of how do you deal with people that you have tried to inflict a particular culture on that isn't theirs, and a certain amount of that populace has worked with you to essentially fight and kill their own countrymen. And when that all comes to a shattering end, what do you do with those people? They've put themselves out there as targets, and it's been difficult for them while the occupying forces have been there. What exactly is it going to be like once those forces leave? So basically, once the Americans and the British leave, and those translators, interpreters, admin staff, and that's before you talk about the Afghan army and the Afghan police, putting them to one side for the moment. What do you do with those civilians? Morally, the question is, can you simply say, well, there was an exchange, you offered labour, we paid you for that labour, and now it's come to an end? It doesn't really matter what I think. I suspect you know what I think, or at least have a good idea. But again, I don't even think that's a video. That to me is something that needs philosophical discussion amongst a group of people that are willing to spend some time thinking and talking about it. And so I'm not going to address the morality. What I am going to address, because what the Afghan situation does is it highlights the immigration situation within the United Kingdom. As with most things in life, it is always best to understand where the common ground is. And to do that, you need to start off with definitions. So I'd like us to just have a quick look at some definition. So when we talk about asylum, certainly in the United Kingdom, because it's good for clicks, it's good for selling newspapers, and I don't suspect, data shows that there is a significant proportion of the United Kingdom's populace that believe that we are being flooded with immigrants. And it's not just that we're being flooded with immigrants, it's asylum seekers and refugees. But the phrase that gets bandied about most is illegal immigrants and illegal asylum seekers. So let's just take some definitions from some sources that we can really rely on. So what I'm showing you here is UNHCR's refugee page, and it poses the question, what is the difference between a refugee and an asylum seeker? Here's my definition. An asylum seeker is someone who claims to be a refugee, but whose claim hasn't been evaluated. So in other words, it's a person turns up at the appointed place, wherever that might be, we'll talk about that, and they say, I'm being persecuted. I need to claim asylum in your country. So they are at the start of the process. An asylum seeker, it's kind of in the name, isn't it? Someone seeking asylum. So they are at the start of the process. I then go on to talk about the refugee part of it. So someone is an asylum seeker for so long as their application is pending. Okay, so the paperwork's going through, the background checks, the investigation is being done, and it is an investigation. So not every asylum seeker will be recognised as a refugee, but every refugee is initially an asylum seeker. So do we see the distinction there? Are we all cool with that? You're being persecuted and you're fleeing from your own country. You go to someone else, to another country, and you say, here are my circumstances. I need asylum. I am a refugee. And the receiving country, such as the UK, should then say, okay, you're now an asylum seeker. The process starts, and pending that process, at the end of it, if it all goes your way, you will receive refugee status. So what does the UNHCR say specifically as to what a refugee is? So in quotes, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, that's quite important, or political opinion, is outside the country of his nationality and is unable to, or owing to such fear, is unwilling to avail himself of the protection of that country. In other words, they're running away from the country because they believe that they're under threat of death, or certainly that they and their families are likely to experience violent reprisal. Okay. So this particular page is pretty cool because it just lays out question after question, which I want to address. So does the UK have more asylum seekers than most countries? Because what we hear a lot in the UK is, yeah, we take more than our fair share. Why don't they go elsewhere? We've got all these asylum seekers. So does the UK have more asylum seekers than most countries? No, it doesn't. In the year ending March 2021, the UK received 26,903 asylum applications from main applicants. Then some more details that show exactly why it is that the United Kingdom doesn't take a massive bulk of asylum seekers. It goes on to say, 2020, the highest number of asylum applicants received in the EU plus were received by Germany, over 122,000, and then France, over 93,000. In the same period, the UK received the fifth largest number of applicants, 36,000. So you can see the sort of difference we're talking about. It's a massive difference. When compared with EU plus member states, around 7% of the total asylum applicants in the EU plus and UK. So 7% of the total. This would represent only the 17th largest intake when measured per head of population. So how many refugees are there in the UK? According to the UNHCR, at the end of 2020, there are just over 132,000, with 77,000 pending asylum cases and nearly 5,000 stateless persons in the UK. The vast majority of refugees, 4 out of 5, stay in their region of displacement and consequently are hosted by developing countries. Turkey now hosts the highest number of refugees with 3.7 million, followed by Colombia with 1.7 million. So in other words, we in the UK, and for that matter in Europe, do not see this massive wave of immigration that the right-wing press would have you believe. And to be frank, I don't think they care whether you believe it. It's as long as you buy the newspapers and click on their websites, that's all they're worried about. They don't care what it does to the social fabric of the United Kingdom because it doesn't affect them. So where do asylum seekers in the UK come from? And this is going to be fairly intuitive, I would think. So the top 5 countries of nationality for asylum applications were Iran, 3,500. Albania, less than 3,000. Eritrea, just over 2,000. Iraq, just over 2,000. And Sudan, not even 2,000. Paltry figures. I'm sorry, but they are. They're paltry figures. So here we go. Here's the definition that I really want to tackle. What is a bogus asylum seeker? There is no such thing as a bogus asylum seeker or an illegal asylum seeker. As an asylum seeker, a person has entered into a legal process of refugee status determination. Everybody has a right to seek asylum in another country. There's a nice quote from Kofi Annan. Let us remember that a bogus asylum seeker is not equivalent to a criminal, and that an unsuccessful asylum application is not equivalent to a bogus one. Now that would seem patently obvious, but again, it makes for great fodder for the likes of the Express and the Mail. Let me just check them. What did I do with it? Here we go. Yeah, so let's just click away from the UNHCR page. This is the Refugee Council website, and this definition is spot on. There is no such thing as an illegal or bogus asylum seeker. Under international law, anyone has the right to apply for asylum in any country that has signed the 1951 Convention and to remain there until the authorities have assessed their claim. Seems fairly black, white and red in this particular case. So you might be thinking, what's the 1951 Convention, Dave? So the 1951 Convention was a convention held in Geneva, and it was a way of thinking through and trying to understand what happened during the at the run up to the Second World War, what happened during the Second World War, and what the implications were after. Because clearly, when you have a world war, you're going to have people being displaced all the time, everywhere, and you need to have a way of managing that. And the thinking would have been, well, we're certainly hoping there's not going to be a third world war, but people are going to continue to be displaced. So we need to have an international agreement so that when people are displaced or they find themselves with a government hostile to them and they need to escape, they're going to receive the same treatment no matter where they go in the world. That they are basically fleeing for their lives and they turn up at country X, and country X will treat them exactly the way that country Y will, exactly the way that country B will. So you get the idea. So the 1951 Convention basically laid the framework for the asylum agreement that we have as international law today, and it was essentially ratified into a legislation in 1967 in New York. Sorry, not that one. So this must be great to watch. Very professional. Sorry. So now that we've got some definitions, we know what an asylum seeker is, what a refugee is, and we know that there is no such thing as an illegal asylum seeker. So we've got some definitions. So let's talk about how this is all playing out with the Afghan population that are fleeing essentially from the Taliban. So the piece that I showed you the video from is from the BBC, and it says, how many asylum seekers has the UK taken in? Obviously in relation to Afghanistan. So it says the UK government has announced a scheme to resettle people from the country, but how have these schemes worked in the past? So it then talks about resettlement schemes and specifically the Afghan Citizens Resettlement Scheme, and that will aim to allow 5,000 Afghans to settle in the UK, with the long-term goal of a total of 20,000. Now, 5,000. I really should get rid of some of this functionality. Note to self. Right, so the number 5,000 in terms of immigration, let's just put that to the back of our mind for the moment. We'll come back to that. Oops. Yeah, I wasn't burying the lead at all there, was I? Anyway, sorry. So the ACRS will focus on women and children as well as religious and other minorities in greater danger from the Taliban. And again, the general reporting would suggest that it would be reasonable to assume that women are going to find their lives at best changed, shall we say, if not simply turned upside down from, certainly in the metropolitan areas, how they've lived their lives for the last decade. Okay, let's say 20 years. At this point, I don't think that matters. What does matter is that people will have been born and lived a life whereby a religious fundamentalist way of living is not what they're going to be used to. I think it's reasonable to say that. And of course, people with certain religious beliefs are going to find it at best difficult. So Christians, for example, and of course other minorities. And really what we're talking about there are transgender people, anyone in the LGBTQ plus community. To say they're going to find it difficult is understated. So let's move on. Basically, this scheme was modelled on was modelled on the Syrian scheme, and those in the greatest need, including people requiring urgent medical treatment. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Those in the greatest need, including people requiring urgent medical treatment, survivors of violence and torture, and women and children. So the government met its target of bringing over 20,000 people from Syria, half of whom were children, over 5 years between 2015 and 2020. So you remember we were talking about, let's take the number 5,000, just put that to the back of our mind. Just have a little think about how many in total there and how many years. And the Home Office said it was the largest resettlement scheme in Europe. Right, fair enough. Okay. However, immigration lawyer Sarah Pinder said this was a blip compared with the total number in need. And again, I think intuitively people will understand that, but you don't need your intuition because it's now, it's being reported. And not only that, you'll see that, I did some simple number, adding multiplication, bit of division, and you can work out exactly how much of a dent that's going to make. So specifically speaking about the Afghan people that work directly with the coalition forces, certainly the United States and the UK. So the Afghan Relocation and Assistance Policy Scheme launched on the 1st of April. And it's designed to resettle interpreters and other people who work for the UK in Afghanistan. The Home Office said it's resettled 2,000 former Afghan staff and their families in the UK since the 22nd of June. The target is 5,000 by the end of this year under this scheme. So the number 5,000 comes round again. So 5,000 refugees coming into the United Kingdom amounts to 0.008%. 20,000 would be 0.03%. So basically, non-existent. You know, we're talking about a group of people that are, assuming that they all make it to the United Kingdom and take up residence here. You'd lose them. You wouldn't notice them in a football match, and I'm talking about the team I follow, right? You'd lose them in a large supermarket. The numbers are so small. But not all who have applied to the scheme have been accepted. 2018 Defence Committee report found British forces were supported by some 7,000 Afghans, known as locally employed or engaged civilians, LECs. Now, I spoke about this on stream or in one of the videos not long ago. During the handover of Hong Kong to the back to the Chinese mainland, the British forces worked with local people, and they were disparagingly known as LEPs, locally enlisted personnel. Now, these guys wore the same uniform as I did. They took the same risks as I did. And then when push came to shove, the British government kind of did a bit of a soft shoe shuffle and said, "Ooh, sorry about that. No can do." So it is more than a cause for concern, shall we say. Miss Pinder said the resettlement schemes were often too slow for crises such as the one unfolding in Afghanistan. And that seems to be a problem that recurs. It seems that it's very simple to start these actions and very slow in terms of the withdrawal. And of course, what does that really mean? That means that there's an agenda about creating the action in the first place, but there's no consideration whatsoever with any notion of how do we leave this. Let's imagine that we're all, let's say just the United Kingdom, and the entire United Kingdom is all on board with whatever the mission might be. That's an irrelevance if you don't know how, when you come to withdraw, you're going to be able to hand that nation back to its rightful guardians. It is wholly understandable that people in that nation are going to serve their own interests. Now, I'm not making a defence for the Taliban or any other faction within Afghanistan. The point that I'm making is that the United Kingdom, alongside the Americans, but they didn't just slip into these into Afghanistan and Iraq and the Middle East, as a wider project. They did it willingly. The government of the day was a Labour government, and they didn't just support the action; they actually pushed that action forward, both with its own people, with its European partners, and more importantly at the UN, to get exactly what they needed to carry out the action in the first place. So Sarah Pinder goes on to say, one of her clients, an Afghan interpreter, has had his application refused under an earlier iteration of the scheme because he'd already left Afghanistan, but he'd fled the country only because working for the UK had left him in danger. It really doesn't take any imagination to understand that somebody working for what is seen as an occupying force is a traitor. And if the opposition forces get their hands on that traitor, that is a coup, isn't it? You know, because you can send very big messages with that person. And it's not going to be a good outcome for that person. So it's hardly surprising that one of Sarah Pinder's clients ran away for fear of their life, and then had to come back. So then they go through the process. Well, I'm sorry, mate. You left the country, and so the process starts again. I mean, it's absurd. It's ridiculous. We're talking about people's lives. You know, I mean, if it was a claim for tax relief, you shouldn't receive this kind of service. But we are talking about someone's life, people's lives. When people are fleeing persecution, it just happens in a messy way, she said. People will be coming off their own steam. They won't be waiting in a non-existent queue. Yeah, I'd wholeheartedly accept that and support that conclusion. We'll come back to that. So the piece then moves on to the actual seeking asylum part. The main way to settle in the UK is to seek asylum once within the country's borders. Now, bear in mind, we've already discussed it's totally legal to turn up at a country and request asylum. That's international law. In 2020, 1,336 people from Afghanistan applied for asylum out of just under 30,000 total applications from around the world, and 580 were granted, roughly 45%. Although not all of those granted asylum had applied in the same year. As of the 31st of March 2021, there were 3,117 people from Afghanistan with an asylum application pending an initial decision, and 70% of them had been waiting for more than 6 months. I mean, again, it really doesn't require any imagination to understand that if you are in fear of your life, I can't imagine what 6 months of waiting around, to either be kidnapped, tortured and killed, or just killed. I don't know how long that 6 months must feel like. It must be an eternity. I imagine myself trying to survive it for 6 hours, let alone 6 months. Anyway, Pinder goes on to say, anyone from Afghanistan recently refused asylum should now have their cases urgently reviewed. And again, it seems like, obvious, seems like, I hesitate to say common sense, because, common sense sort of implies that, well, after reviewing my thoughts, I kind of feel that that's common sense, and this doesn't really require any thought. Anyway, under international law, there is nothing to say people must seek asylum in the first safe country or arrive through official channels. This is important because we hear this a lot. But the Nationality and Borders Bill currently before Parliament would make knowingly arriving in the UK without permission a criminal offence. Just think about that. You are running away from somewhere where you are under threat of death. and you find the country that you think is going to protect you. And one of the first actions that they have is to identify you as a criminal. And needless to say, then prosecute you like a criminal. So let's have a look at the Nationality and Borders Bill, a particularly repulsive piece of legislation. And it's very nicely covered here in the refugeecouncil.org website. So basically, the start of this piece says, the provisions in this anti-refugee bill, because that's what it is, and we will get through this, are likely to criminalise and punish many people seeking protection in this country, while also reducing one of the main ways that refugees can legally reach the UK. Right? So it is a legal route for them to come to the UK, right? And now we're going to turn that into a criminal route. And you'll see why this isn't just, absurd. It's hypocritical as well. If we take the government on their own terms, we'll find out why. And I just thinking to myself earlier on, if your goal is to legalise routes to the UK for asylum seekers, it does seem odd to make that more difficult, unless that wasn't your goal and your actual objective was to reduce, if not eradicate, immigration. Why would you put obstacles in the way of something that you claim you actually want to make safer? And that implies better, we are going to regulate this and we're going to police it in a positive way. But in actual fact, what they've done is they've closed that off and made it something that will now brand that person a criminal. So the differential treatment of refugees. Refugees who do not arrive in the UK directly from a country of persecution, for example, those who travel across Europe, will not enter the asylum system when they make the claim for protection. Instead, their claim will be treated as inadmissible while the government tries to remove them from the country. They will also be under threat of a 4-year prison sentence for entering illegally. If removal isn't possible within a particular period of time, then their asylum claim will be heard. So you've just ran away from somewhere that is abominable, and you've run headlong into somewhere that's abominable, but in a different way. Make no mistake. It's quite clear, isn't it? The quiet parts are being said out loud now. People rush to blame Trump, but as I've said before on stream, this thinking, they're not ideologies, this thinking, these biases, this hatred of the other, that's been about a long time before Trump and structured a long time before Trump. The American evangelical right, that they have no tolerance for anybody. The United Kingdom, the right have no tolerance for their working class, and they don't want to see, they don't want any change, and that includes what they physically see. They think they're in danger of having to see brown people on a regular basis, which is unfortunate for that. Certainly it's going to be unfortunate for their children and their grandchildren, because that's called demographic. That's going to happen anyway. But of course they want to speed the process up and try and eliminate as many people. Maybe that was an unfortunate choice of word. All I meant was they want to stop dark people coming to the United Kingdom. Accommodation centres. Perhaps I should point out, I know a bit about this because I studied immigration, or I have studied immigration. They're being quite generous here when they label them as accommodation centres. They're not called immigration detention centres for nothing by the general population. Because today we have people that have spent north of 2 years in immigration centres, which are always away from major conurbations. Apart from the one at Heathrow, they are away from people. They keep immigrants away from the populace of the United Kingdom. They want them not to exist. They want them not to be seen. And that's, there are many reasons for that. A principal reason is because if you see people that are being badly treated, as a human being, you have a sensation that you need to help them. So anyway, rather than me disappear, into my own plane of hatred, let's stick with something that's a bit more grounded. So accommodation centres. The government is proposing that some people seeking asylum will be housed in large-scale accommodation centres rather than in housing in the community as is provided by the current system. They are being very generous because, as I say, there are 7 large centres dotted throughout the UK, and they aren't located in what you would call communities. You don't have to go very far to see the Home Office were suggesting that they would have floating immigration centres. So in other words, an island. We're going to put these people on an island. Can't do better than that. Keeps them totally away from the population. They then go on to talk about the lack of safe and legal routes. So in recent years, 5,000 refugees have been resettled to the UK each year. So I said about keeping the number 5,000 to mind. So in recent years, 5,000 refugees have been resettled to the UK each year. And as we now know, 0.008% of the populace. That's what that number means. Nothing. In terms of numbers, it's nothing. Absolutely nothing. But for 2021-2022, the total is likely to be closer to 3,000. Hang on, we're going the wrong way here, aren't we? The number's going down. Surely, if anything's going to happen, it would just remain the same. Reactionaries love the status quo. You'd imagine it would be at least 5,000. No, they're reducing the number. The government is now refusing to commit to a target for future years, and nothing in the bill gives any detail on refugee resettlement. It goes on to say, over many years, tens of thousands of people have been reunited with their loved ones through refugee family reunion. That must be an amazing feeling. You've been through, who knows how many years of, abject misery and torture. You don't know whether your loved ones are alive or dead. If they're alive, what's happening to them? And it must be, it's simply torture. And then you get to a point where you are finally reunited. You're a family again. I can't imagine how brilliant that feels. And respect to the people that are that are actually involved in making that happen. It must be an amazing feeling. What a job. Anyway. Yet this key route is now being stymied, as the bill proposes that anyone with temporary protection will have limited rights to refugee family reunion. This actually reduces the safe and legal routes to the UK and means that many thousands of women and children will no longer be able to join loved ones in our country. You know, how fucking cruel is that? How fucking cruel and inhuman is that? That's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And of course, it's not just a faceless government policy. Excuse me a moment. Right, sorry about that. So next steps and how we fight back. So the bill is actually going through Parliament at the moment. I think it's at the second reading. Let's have a look. No, it's at committee stage. So it's in Parliament. And so what they're advocating is, building a mass campaign of people to support refugees. And of course, you can do that by contacting your MP. You can you can watch out for social media. refugeecouncil.org.uk will send you alerts and keep you updated as to how the fight's going. But what I'd like to try and illustrate here is that Afghanistan and the situation today you could choose 1,000 different things to critique and criticize, as I said at the beginning, but the most practical one to me seems to be immigration. If ever there was going to be a test case for the humanity of the government of the day, this would be it. I would say, okay, what we need to do is we need to err on the side of caution here. We need to ensure that we sweep up all the people that could possibly have helped the United Kingdom and therefore become a target for reprisal. So we need to go further perhaps than we have to. We need to sweep up more people, get them safe, and then we can worry about paperwork. We can worry about exactly who's entitled, who's not. Thing is, the numbers are so small. You could be, you can be an order of magnitude wrong here, and the number that you're patriate is meaningless, to the overall population. It makes so small a difference, nobody would notice it. So to go back to my my mantra of keep 5,000 in your mind. Well, 5,000 a year, 0.008%. Well, let's be an order of magnitude out, and let's say 50,000. That is not even filling most Premier League ground. It, spread throughout the United Kingdom, for that matter. Put them into one city, one large town. They'll just be absorbed. They're people, and without trying to engage on the moral argument and just trying to look at it as a human being. The United Kingdom asked let's be benevolent. The United Kingdom asked the people of Afghanistan to work with them so that they could attempt to help them. The United Kingdom engaged with those people. They asked them to work with them. The very least that the United Kingdom can do now is to try to keep them safe and their loved ones safe. And it is amazing to me that there isn't, the positive spin to be seen from this, which would be, we're going to ensure that 50,000 Afghans who were under, real serious threat of murder or torture, and this would include their families. Well, the United Kingdom stepped in and said, no, that's, we can't have that. That's inhumane. And so we've brought them all to the United Kingdom. Yeah, apart from the fact that I would think the vast majority of the people that are going to become refugees from Afghanistan come from the metropolitan areas of Afghanistan. That suggests to me that they're likely to be, or certainly there's going to be a higher proportion amongst them that are doctors and lawyers, engineers, scientists. So you're actually increasing your population with highly skilled people that we currently can't get enough of. So you can do the right thing and actually profit from it. Anyway, those are my thoughts on immigration and how Afghanistan brings that into sharp relief. I'm sorry it was a bit disjointed today, which of course every single episode is. They either don't start or the audio goes, banzai, or something mad happen. And I think I haven't looked at the output, but I think I could be right in saying that this could be the first time I've started a stream, and I've got I've had to go and tell the dog off and stuff like that, but it started chat, and it finished without something exploding either end or in the middle. Anyway, we'll see, I suppose. So, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very, very much for your attention. I guess what I'd like to say is, if you are watching this and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It's very, very helpful. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers so that I can use the channel's name instead of the random set of characters that you get given. But aside from that, obviously world domination is what I'm after. And so without those subscribers, world domination could be a bit of a stretch. I obviously do the stream. I have a YouTube channel, as you know, Twitch TV, or rather this is on Twitch TV. There's also the website, which is partypoliticalpuffin.co.uk. You can see me on Twitter at Puffin Politics and various other places. This is my job, and it really does need to be supported. So if you feel that you get value from the work that I do across the various different outlets, your help would be very much appreciated. If you could think about going to patreon.com/partypoliticalpuffin, you could take up a Maslow membership and become part of the community. Or if that doesn't suit, you could always think about a one-off contribution at paypal.me, or you could buy me a coffee at, it's ko-fi.com. I'll try and put some graphics up, and hopefully some of you watching this will be able to support. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you and yours are well, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye for now.